Welcome to the Solid Verbal. The Solid Verbal.
Come after me! I'm a man! I'm 40!
I've heard so many players say, well, I want to be happy. You want to be happy for a day? Eat a steak.
It's that woo-woo!
And now, Dan and Ty.
Welcome back to Solid Verbal, boys and girls. My name is Ty Hildebrand. Joining me, as always, my good friend over there in New York effing City. His name is Dan Rubenstein. Sir, how are you?
I'm good, Ty. I have some sad news, and it doesn't involve Ohio State's offense.
Oh.
The empty pack of mozzarella cheese, the string cheese, gone. The wrapper, gone.
No.
So I don't know what that means for the rest of our careers, but I hope it's not a bad omen.
Damn, dropping bombs here right from the start.
I apologize. Yeah. I just felt like I had to let everybody know that it's the start of a new era, hopefully a good one.
As the cheese wrapper goes, so do the Big Ten's playoff chances.
Oh.
Yeah, it was a crazy weekend of college football. Week 10 did not disappoint.
No.
We're going to get into all of the action here momentarily. Thank you for tuning in, for downloading, for listening. Don't forget you can find us on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram. We're also out at solidverbal.com. In case you haven't noticed by now, we're a college football podcast that you can download for free on Apple, on Spotify, Google Play, anywhere where you can find your favorite podcast. Dan, crazy weekend. Did you enjoy it?
Very much so. And also, if you're listening to this show on Real Player, we salute you. I had a fantastic time. And it concluded with me going to sleep right after halftime of the Oregon game, so I didn't have to watch a good chunk of that, Ty. So big wins all around, except, for my team. Weirdness. Right around, 5, 6 o'clock, when everything seemed kind of tight and strange and upsetty and inexplicable, I tweeted out to savor this moment, and I really meant it. It was a wonderful chunk of time right there, Ty. I had a blast.
Let's get started where we always get started. Let's have a listen to your voice messages. We call them the reverbs from week 10. Here you go.
Yes. A concerned Michigan State fan, Chris. I was looking for the Thai apology line.
Hey, this is Derek on the Nebraska Prairie.
This is Jonathan Thompson calling from Daphne, Alabama, on the beautiful eastern shore of Mobile Bay.
Brian checking in from Paris, France.
Hi, this is Nick from Oklahoma.
Forget about Pac-12 after dark. It's all about Big Ten before dinner.
I think Ty forgot to check the forecast for this game because there's 3 things in life that are for sure. Death, taxes, and Sparty in the rain.
Ty, just calling to say I'm really looking forward to your apology to Spartan Nation. Great win by my boys today. Go green, baby. Let's go.
I think we can officially confirm Mark D'Antonio was a verballer because he must have heard Ty's fresh, steaming, glorious load of disrespect this week.
My Iowa Hawkeyes just beat Ohio State. I don't know what to say. I don't know.
Iowa!
Just watched my Hawkeyes put a 50 burger on Ohio State. Give Kirk Ferentz like 8 more lifetime contract extensions.
I would like to pour some liquor out for my homies in Columbus, Ohio. Ohio State, you died a very, very bad death tonight.
I'm 39 years old and would like to reach a point in my life where I don't get choked up when everybody waves to the kids at Iowa.
Did Jim Harbaugh dress up like Carl from Caddyshack for Halloween? Because we're beating up Gophers tonight.
We all live in the little brown jug, the little brown jug, the little brown jug.
Can I get some love for Rutgers? My Scarlet Knights now at 3 Big Ten wins.
I got kicked out of a hotel party last night, and it was the exact same feeling I had when Maryland lost to Rutgers.
Grandpa, no. No one's getting murdered, and no, that's not porn. That's Mike Tirico talking about Josh Adams.
This is Craig from South Bend, Indiana. Hey, Miami, come out and play.
The sad Katie Hokie. We tip our cap to Mark Richt. Got outcoached on this one. Maybe next week.
I'm pretty sure my Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets are secretly garbage.
Ty, thank you for locking up the Cowboys, and special shout out to Dan for locking them up as well. Boomer!
I'm an Oklahoma State fan. That was not fun, and I'd just like to say
Bless the Lord that Baker Mayfield is graduating. I can't wait for Dan to read the drive chart for this TCU Texas game.
Cliff Kingsbury is going to get the best handwritten thank you notes in the mail this week.
Y'all take against the Mountaineers like it's your job. Well, the Cinderella train stopped here, baby. Let's go Mountaineers.
I just got back after watching Washington beat the Ducks. Which one of Oregon's touchdowns was your favorite?
Dan, now remind me again how the weather was supposed to help out people from Palo Alto, California. Go Cougs!
I'm calling to gloat that my UAB Blazers are now bowl eligible, solidifying their place as Alabama's one true zombie team.
Dan, I'm about to pick up a drum and fife and beat the hell out of somebody with it because the Hoyas just got robbed of a W over on multi-sport filled by the refs. Anybody seen what Army had just done to Air Force? Somebody just got murdered!
The MIT Beavers are 7-2. Smart guys finish first.
This is Miss Priscilla Manoir calling from Modern Housekeeping of the Past magazine, and I just have to say, my word, what terrible hosts the Iowa Hawkeyes are. They're always like this when they have guests over.
All right, there you go. Lively as ever, Dan. I pitied Taylor this morning when I opened up the old voicemail inbox, and there were hundreds of messages coming in talking about that moment of weirdness that you referenced in our open a few minutes ago. Yeah, just a lot going on. I suspect we're going to end up talking some Big Ten for a bit here at the top of the show because that's really where the action was. So let's start here. Iowa 55, Ohio State 24?
Guess who just got murdered?
Dan, I'm going to tell you something straight up here. I have no idea how we're supposed to talk to our children about Iowa drilling Ohio State by 31 points.
What they did not set a good example. It was mean. It was unfortunate. It was with a bad attitude, Ty. That's what you should be telling your children. Iowa football, not role models for kind citizenry.
Ohio State just got destroyed.
Yeah, they did.
In this game.
Really,
now, look,
really
in fairness, on Wednesday, we talked about a letdown effect being a real possibility. Close home win, 39-38. You beat Penn State. You catapult yourself into the playoff conversation once more. Yeah, on the road, potential letdown. I think anyone who follows college football could understand that. But damn, this is the letdown effect on gummy berry juice, Dan. There was a lot going on here.
Yes, both sides of the ball for Iowa were incredible. I mean, they were forcing turnovers. They were in the right position to force turnovers. Offensively, they were able to run it, as strange as that sounds for the 2017 Iowa Hawkeyes. Nate Stanley looks to be a quarterback, unlike other recent quarterbacks at Iowa, confident. Did you see the touchdown pass he had? I think it was the play after the fake punt field goal thing from deep inside Ohio State.
When the guy was hanging on his leg?
He got Van Gundy'd, Ty.
Yeah.
He got full on Van Gundy'd and just was calm and delivered a touchdown pass like it's what he does, because it is. 5 touchdown passes. He only threw the ball 30 times, and Iowa just in the turnovers, in the ridiculous interception, I think it was Josh Jackson at the goal line, the one-handed pick. Iowa dressed differently, played differently, ran differently, and just exposed Ohio State in a different way. I think it was the most points Urban Meyer has ever given up as a head coach.
Yeah.
Did I see that correctly?
Yeah.
It was an incredible display of dominance from Iowa, and it screws things up playoff-wise. But Ty, I hope you agree with me here. I'm okay with just enjoying college football as it happens and not put everything through the sort of periscope and the funnel of the college football playoff. Live in the moment, because yesterday's moment in Iowa City was spectacular.
It was incredibly weird.
Yeah.
And I think accentuates what we love about college football. And it's just that you can have on any given week a team that's 17-point underdog miraculously win a game.
Yeah.
You don't have that in the NFL. You don't have that in a lot of other sports, but in college football, especially this year, I mean, we've had a fair number of them now where they seem to come out of the blue. There might be indicators that point to some potential for it happening, but ultimately no one was predicting an Iowa win, not like this, by 31 points. The other thing that I'll add on, we had a conversation, you'll remember this on Twitter a couple days ago, with some guys talking about how the play calling for JT Barrett and Ohio State's offense on the whole hasn't always done a whole lot to help the cause. Like the play calling, we've joked about the Beckmeyer syndrome here on the program, and from time to time have discussed how the play calling isn't always the best friend of Ohio State. I don't think you can pin what we saw from JT Barrett on any kind of play calling mishaps on Saturday. He was just legitimately bad. 4 picks. He just did not get the job done, Dan. And we saw how he was able to really take the team on his back against Penn State. This was an indicator of what happens when he's not able to shoulder that load. You lose by 31 on the road and can't move the ball against an Iowa defense that's pretty good, but I would be lying if I said I expected them to hold Ohio State down to the extent that they did.
What if I told you, Ty, that JT Barrett had more carries than J.K. Dobbins and Mike Weber did combined? And that includes sacks, obviously. But at the same time, nothing new. The creativity, the trust, the variety. And there were moments JT Barrett threw like a really nice deep ball 2 or 3 times for touchdowns. Like, where is this? Why can't we build around this? Now that we, have exposed this part of the secondary or this part of the field, why can't we do more now that they're keying in on X, Y, and Z? And then it would just revert right back to first read is covered. Oh, there's the second read. I'm taking a bit too long, and I'm just trying to rifle it in there like my name is Deshaun Kaiser. 2016.
How dare you?
No, but that was the look, and it was painful to watch, and I think it speaks much more to preparation and play calling than it does JT Barrett's individual talent, which is fine, but not, top of the top. I just don't know how you watch another big Ohio State game after he played really nicely in the second half last week, if you're a top tier quarterback recruit and think that's where I need to be to get better and to win big games on my shoulders. I don't see how that is at all possible if they're just going to keep running you like crazy. If you're tackled 12, 14, 16, 18 times in a game from, by a good defense, it doesn't make you a better passer, right?
No, it doesn't.
It doesn't seem productive.
It doesn't seem like you're quite as harsh on JT Barrett as I tend to be.
I just think we know what he is. He's fine, but he's not going to win you big games, most of the time. That's just the reality.
The other quick point, and then I promise we'll move on because there's a bunch to get to in Big Ten country.
Yeah.
The Ohio State defense. 55 points to Iowa. And we talked about Nate Stanley throwing 5 touchdown passes, and he was good. He was confident. He was all that. But 55 points, man, on the road, that's a total defensive collapse for a defense that has a ton of talent.
Yeah, and a lot of that was generated by turning Ohio State over and, getting short fields, and ideal positioning. But at the same time, when they drove down the field, they weren't doing anything crazy. There weren't, trick plays. There weren't flea flickers. It wasn't jet sweeps. It wasn't shovel, it wasn't anything out of the ordinary. Iowa went right at them. They threw it over the top. They ran off guard, off tackle. That's what it was. They just executed. Weird.
55-24, Iowa gets a big home win. Iowa's doing some work this year. Almost knocked off Penn State earlier in the year. Annihilated Ohio State. They're going to get a crack at Wisconsin before long. We'll talk about that game at some point, I am sure. The Ohio State loss, of course, Dan, that opens the door for Penn State to jump right back in this thing, right?
There they are.
Right back in this thing. Lo and behold, Michigan State 27, Penn State 24, literally a 7-hour football game. They played a quarter and a half before there was a 3.5-hour lightning delay. They started the game back up around 4:30-ish. I hope you weren't in the small minority of people who left the house and set your DVR to record Stanford and Wazoo on Fox because, Dan, they moved that game over to the Fox Business Channel to accommodate an incredibly long marathon broadcast of Michigan State, Penn State. 27-24. Wow.
So Michigan State's pretty good when the conditions aren't ideal and they're playing a team perhaps that's shown some cracks in a letdown spot, and defensively they seem to prevent big plays. If only, Ty, if only somebody on this show had the foresight to at least believe, at the very least, that Michigan State is pretty good and can keep it close against another pretty good team.
Listen, Dan. We can talk about all the ways Penn State shot themselves in the foot.
Sure.
But I need to start here. I owe Michigan State fans an apology. I was texting back and forth with them all night. This was a great win. Brian Lewerke is only a sophomore. He's got back-to-back 400-plus yard passing games. Felton Davis was a dude with 12 grabs, 181 and a score here. The defense, they held down Saquon completely. They picked off Trace McSorley 3 times. Hey, this is a good team. They've now got a big game against Ohio State next week. Ohio State showing some cracks as well. They control their own Big Ten East destiny. I apologize if I didn't get around to messaging you personally. I think I got everybody, but if I didn't, if you're listening, if you're feeling a bit like I owe you something, I apologize. Michigan State looked good in this game, and it was sloppy, but that's how they wanted it to be. They did what they needed to do, got a big home win here. So, wow, I am sorry, Spartan Nation.
Yeah, it wasn't, watching this game, there wasn't a feeling of like, wow, Michigan State is looking completely different and they're finally getting their act together in ways that they haven't earlier on. They were not able to run it against Penn State for the most part. LJ Scott, I think his longest run was 6 yards.
Yeah.
Am I reading this correctly?
Yep.
I just never saw any loose busting, Ty. Nothing was busted loose for Michigan State on the ground. And you're right, Felton Davis was enormous through the air. And I think it was just timely, delicate moving of the ball. Delicate's probably the wrong word, but timely, just execution. Ty, they were 10 of 18 on third down, so they kept drives going. They kept Penn State's defense, which I'm sure is already in a weird place with the weight because of the lightning and the delay.
Sure.
And they just kept them on the field. They forced them to make open field tackles that they were not always able to do. And even though Deshaun Hamilton, I think it was Tompkins, they both go over 100 yards, they limited how effective they were over the course of the game. And McSorley throws for almost 400 yards, but the timely throws weren't there. He throws 3 picks, and Michigan State just does what Sparty does.
Well, they do what they do, and you use the execution word, which I think is very fitting here, because Penn State did not. They dropped balls that were in the hands of receivers. They dropped interceptions, had some dumb penalties, maybe a bit of a letdown effect. I don't know. But, for whatever reason, they just did not bring their A game. A lot of weird factors at play. James Franklin, you might have seen the trivia fact that's dancing around the internet now that he's 0-10 on the road against AP ranked teams. This is significant. I know you don't like to always look at college football through the playoff periscope, but it is significant because both Penn State and Ohio State are effectively out of that playoff race. And it could be even more significant for the Big Ten if Michigan State were to win the Big Ten East title and go on to knock off, presumably, Wisconsin in the Big Ten championship. They could effectively eliminate the entire conference. I don't think that so much matters to Mark D'Antonio. He went 3-9 a year ago. Now it appears as if he's found a quarterback who is giving him production like we haven't seen since Kirk Cousins, and certainly his defense is forcing teams to make some mistakes.
Yeah, and they had an opportunity early on. They score the couple touchdowns in the first quarter, and then a little bit before and after the delay. I'm looking at 11 plays for combined 16 yards and 3 punts.
Yeah.
That's ultimately when you can't give your defense a little bit of rest, and granted, everybody had rest in this game, but if you can't get your defense off the field, and if you can't mount drives and get everybody in a rhythm, skill position players, offensive coordinator, quarterback, whatever, ultimately that's tough when you are going to need to score 30, 35 points to win a game like this. Also, Ty?
Yeah.
I wanted to get something off my chest. I felt really bad about this. I woke up, as you know, I did very well with my picks this week. That's, nothing new.
Humble as ever. Yeah.
Humble as ever. As you know, these are facts, Ty. I present a series of facts.
Okay.
Anyway, I wake up this morning pretty well rested because I got the hour back of sleep. Shout out daylight savings time ending. And there was an audio file, Ty, just right at the foot of the altar of Dan.
Okay.
And I know what you're saying. Audio files are digital. How can they appear at a physical thing that we've come to worship? I don't know the answer to that, Ty, but I found it to be mean-spirited, misguided, and I just not within the general good vibes that we like to display on this show. And it was regarding the Michigan State Penn State game, Ty.
Okay.
So
yeah,
we could bury it, but we're all about transparency. So
sure,
Ty, if you will, have a listen. Imagine if Ty Hildenbrandt said this.
There is no way I can give you my opinion on this game without coming across as unduly dismissive towards Michigan State.
And then Ty stood by this.
Michigan State is the best bad team in the country.
And imagine if you told him this would happen.
Buddy Maworki goes the other way. Stewart goes up to catch it. Touchdown, Michigan State.
Imagine if he thought this.
I am not buying that at all.
Imagine believing this.
Michigan State, they play defense, but that's about it.
For the win, Michigan State's improbable march continues to Columbus.
Just imagine.
I'm saying Penn State wins 38-20. Oh, wow, Dan.
Can't condone it, Ty. I do not appreciate, like, you are doing your best and you selected
dog.
Your pick. You used facts. You tried.
You're bringing a gun to a knife fight today. Good work. Good work.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hey, I had that coming. I have that coming. I'll take it.
Okay, fair enough.
I'll take it. Wow. Yeah, it was a reverse jinx that I shouldn't have applied, but what are you going to do? Elsewhere in the Big Ten, we should mention this now.
Yeah.
Don't want to talk too much about just Ohio State and Penn State. We mentioned the ramifications. Wisconsin could end up going 12-0 in the regular season if they can get by Michigan, if they can get by Iowa. They do need to play a Big Ten championship game in order to get to 13-0. I think that's their best chance, certainly for the Big Ten at this point, having an entry in the college football playoff. They won 45-17 over Indiana. I'm not going to spend too much time talking about it. They did get off to a bit of a slow start, but then proceeded to outscore the Hoosiers 31-7 in the second half. 183 yards for JTT, Jonathan Taylor, tailback. Right now, there are 4 one-loss teams in front of Wisconsin. We've got Notre Dame, Clemson, Oklahoma, and TCU. Oklahoma and TCU play each other.
Correct.
This coming week. So one of those two is going to get bounced. They're going to have
possibly
2 losses.
Twice. Yep.
Right. But let's just say Oklahoma. Let's say Oklahoma beats TCU.
Mm-hmm.
Even if they have a rematch in the Big 12 championship game, they win that game too. Oklahoma, let's say, wins out. Let's say the same for Notre Dame and Clemson as well. Throw into the mix the potential for Wisconsin to win out and go 13-0. Mm-hmm. What happens then in a playoff sense, Dan? Does Wisconsin get in?
I would take Oklahoma at 12-1 over an undefeated Wisconsin team.
I kind of feel the same way.
If that's what you're weighing, if that's ultimately at the end of the year what it comes down to, because there's 1,000 different possibilities, because there will probably be, Georgia and Alabama, one of those teams is going to have a loss, at least one loss. And, we'll see what happens with Clemson, obviously. But if it comes down to those two teams squaring off for that final spot, I would take Oklahoma.
It's an interesting debate. We can continue having it. All Wisconsin could do is beat the teams on its schedule. Scheduling isn't always an indicator for how good a team is. All you can do is beat the teams that are on your schedule. But at least up until now, Wisconsin hasn't played the toughest of top flight competition. It will get harder.
And I think it's about performance. It's strength of record, not necessarily strength of schedule.
All right, moving on. Let's go to the Bedlam game. 62-52, Oklahoma wins. There were 114 points, over 1,400 yards in this football game, Dan. It was 38-all at halftime. Look, Baker Mayfield, 598 and 5 touchdowns. Mason Rudolph, 448 and 5 touchdowns. I could sit here I could read numbers until I'm blue in the face. I don't think that's useful. What does this mean for the Big 12's playoff chances?
Root for Oklahoma, I suppose. I think that the Big 12 right now, because of some of the struggles the Pac-12 has had, what the Big 10 East did, or rather didn't do yesterday, I think the Big 12 is in a pretty good position. And we were already reaching the point where it looked like a non-conference champ, perhaps a team that doesn't even play in a conference championship game, or a two-loss team would make their way into the playoff. And I think that just exacerbated what I think are facts moving forward with Oklahoma over Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State suffering a second loss. Oklahoma and TCU playing each other this coming week, I believe, right? That's when they play each other?
Yep.
So, yes, I think we are just getting more wide open, and we're going to have to... there's no real objective way to say this is how you select the 4 teams that make their way into the playoff. At a certain point, you have to say, this is who I believe based on watching the games and based on what they've looked like against these teams. This is just what I believe. And you're going to have more than that than not in that committee. So right now, I love that Oklahoma has the best passing game in the country. I don't care all that much if they keep winning, even if their defense doesn't look good. I want to see the best passing game in the country in the playoff. Just how I feel.
That's fine. I think Oklahoma has really opened some eyes, at least on this side of the microphone they have, because a week ago, we were talking about how the Big 12 is dead. They're dead. It's not looking good for the Big 12 in the playoff. And now we've got things blowing up in the Big 10. We've got Oklahoma looking very impressive offensively. Maybe not so much from the defensive side, but I don't think it's quite as dire as we might have thought a week or two ago. I think Oklahoma's got a really strong case. I do think they're improving. And I think as it relates to Baker Mayfield, with Saquon Barkley, with Bryce Love, with Josh Adams, all of those guys either had a mediocre day or were held out or sort of injured. With Josh Adams, who knows? Baker might be your Heisman frontrunner at this point.
Oh, I think so. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, Jalen Hurts is in that conversation. I don't know. I mean, I don't think there's anybody from the Pac-12 now after Khalil Tate's. He had a very good second half, but I don't know if he is still in that conversation in the same way that he was without starting games in September. So, yeah, I would put Baker Mayfield squarely right there.
Other action in the Big 12 of note. We had West Virginia 20, Iowa State 16. A game weirdly defined by defense, Daniel. Not something we're accustomed to seeing from an Iowa State team, but that's sort of been the rub the last few weeks now. They are playing solidly on the defensive side of the ball. West Virginia, though, jumped out to a 20-0 lead and was able to hang on. They were shut out over the final 36 minutes of the football game. Iowa State clawed its way back into things, but ultimately not enough time in this game for Iowa State to get back in it and actually upend the Mountaineers at home. This is a big win for West Virginia.
And they can no longer go 5-7.
That is correct.
They're now bowl eligible at 6-3. A nice game from Billy Gruyere. A balanced game, at least for the first half. This looked like a West Virginia team that had gotten its affairs in order, but that now makes it sound like they're about to die. I apologize. But no, it's a good win for West Virginia to hold on. I imagine West Virginia fans are a little bit unhappy with how the offense progressed in the second half, but Iowa State is a totally for real team, and I would say should remain in the top 25, or at least ish.
All right, and then we have TCU 24, Texas 7. This was a game also dominated by defense. 2 in a row here, talking about defense before we talk about the offense, perhaps to counterbalance what we saw in Bedlam. But of note here, aside of the fact that I picked Texas to win this game outright, which was one of my many transgressions on this college football Saturday.
But you own it, Ty. You own it. I appreciate
I'm down with it. That's fine. TCU goes to Oklahoma next week, which is really the main talking point. I don't know if you had a chance to look at what week 11 has in store for us, Dan.
Not yet.
Yeah, get on that. Maybe by the end of the show, we can talk a little bit about what's coming, but next week is shaping up to be a giant asteroid headed towards Earth.
Okay, yeah, TCU, a nice game. Ken Hill wasn't fantastic through the air, but came up with some timely runs on the ground. They ran well overall. Defensively, they were in a good place. I think it was Nick Orr who broke up everything that came in his direction for the Frogs. So a relatively nice win against a very tough defense in Texas. I think that's sort of what is missing when we talk about this game. Texas defense has gotten progressively to the point that they're very, very good.
Let's move over to the SEC, Daniel.
Let's.
But before we do, fall's my favorite time of year.
Oh, is it really? This is you?
My favorite time of year. There's always a game to watch.
Yeah, that is a fair point.
And now, thanks to Net 10 Wireless, we always have access to the latest scores and highlights right on our smartphones, Dan.
Tell me more.
You can get a choice of flexible plans, great nationwide coverage on one of America's largest and most dependable networks. There's never been a better time to switch now to Net 10 Wireless because, listen to this, for a limited time, you can get double data for life on unlimited plans starting as low as $35. So what that means is you get unlimited talk, text, and the first 4 gigabytes of high-speed data, then 2G for $35. Or you can bump it up to 20 gig of high-speed data, then 2G for just $60.
Okay, I'm with you.
It's a deal. Plus, at Net 10 Wireless, you can pick the phone and the plan that fits your needs. And you've got the added lifetime value of double data. No contracts, no hidden fees, nothing like that. Net10wireless.com. So that's NET, the number 10, wireless.com to reference the specific terms and restrictions of service and all that jazz that you need to know. But yeah, get the goods on double data for life today at net10wireless.com. It truly is a game changer.
Doing it now, Ty. Doing it now.
Get on that. While you look up Net 10, I want to talk about Alabama 24, LSU 10.
Nice. Okay.
So look, I got a bone to pick here. And I know this is going to come across as stupid, and there are going to be people out there who listen to it. You're familiar with these folks who listen to it. Oh, you don't know what you're talking about. Maybe I don't. If you looked at the scores from yesterday, it's obvious I don't. Mm-hmm. This is just me talking friend to friend here.
Okay. Safe space.
I know that Nick Saban relishes this role as college football's wet blanket.
Mm-hmm.
I get it. I know why he does it. I know he's going to go down as likely the best college football coach of all time and probably get another title this year and all that. I get it. But as a fan, shut up. Shut up.
Wow.
Enjoy a win just once.
Ty, it's not about production. It's about the process.
Quote from the post-game presser. I told the players before the game that we haven't been tested with hard. He's using hard as a noun.
Okay.
Hard kind of defines you. We didn't play a great game out there. We had a lot of self-inflicted wounds. But you can't argue with the fight the players fought with. What is he even saying there,
The fight they fought with?
The fight. Okay. That's a direct quote. I didn't make that up.
Okay.
Just enjoy a damn win. You're probably the best team in the country. I understand that the effusive praise that is thrown at Alabama is a bit of rat poison to you and your program. I'm just tired of it. Just, enjoy it. This is a big win for your program.
But wouldn't that doesn't his general type of attitude make it that much more fun when a crazier coach beats him or a crazier quarterback?
Well, I guess, but I'm not rooting against Alabama. Alabama's a fun team to watch because they're so damn talented.
True.
And I guess it just rubs me a little bit the wrong way when he's constantly playing this act like, oh, we're nothing special. Oh, we shot ourselves in the foot too many times. Like, they're not going to lose this year. Shut up.
But what does every face, Ty, in wrestling need?
You need a heel.
Every face needs a heel.
I don't know. It was a costly win for Alabama. Both Sean Dion Hamilton and Mac Wilson went down from their linebacking core with potentially season-ending injuries. I have not heard more on that. Have you seen anything?
No, but potentially this now means that they're down, I think, 4 of their 5 first starting linebackers or top of the rotation linebackers, whatever, starters and rotation guys. So it's damage, especially when they have, Auburn and what looks like Georgia to finish out their schedule, that 2 teams that can move the ball and play around with backup linebackers. Good news for Alabama is the rotation guys are 5-star freshmen and redshirt freshmen and sophomores. It's fine. This game specifically, I was impressed with Jalen Hurts against a good defense, much more so than I think than I have been recently in bigger games, just because he was squaring up his shoulders. When he had the time to step into throws, when his offensive line gave him the time, which I was also impressed with LSU's front more so than I have been these past few weeks. But when he had the time, he was patient. He scanned the field. He took what LSU gave to him. He didn't need to win the game on his own shoulders. He ran when he needed to run. And I was also impressed with LSU. I didn't have a ton of expectations for this offense, but they moved the ball well enough. They were kind of a disaster in the red zone. They were starting out their drives constantly like inside their own 30. So that was sort of a testament to J.K. Scott and the punting job that Alabama was able to do when things weren't working out on offense. But yes, he had the long run from, it wasn't Geis, I think it was Williams, to set up a touchdown. Right. And it wasn't always pretty. And there were mistakes and drops. And I took that as promising for the future of LSU offensive creativity and execution, because eventually they're going to have a passing game run by somebody with a much higher ceiling than Danny Etling, right?
You would think. Yeah. You would hope.
I just fingers, toes, tendons, they're all crossed, Ty. They're all crossed.
Yeah, and defensively, LSU played well enough to keep themselves in this one. They just didn't have the offense. Didn't have the offense to pose any real threat here.
Would have liked a little bit more in the way of aggressive play calling from the offense. But yeah, there were chunks and moments where I said, okay, I see what they might be next year.
Some other SEC games of note here while we're talking about Alabama 24, LSU 10. Auburn 42, Texas A&M 27. I go back and forth on how good I think Auburn really is.
It's kind of a mystery.
It took Auburn until the second half to really get separation here. They're still giving up too many big plays on defense, but on offense, Jarrett Stidham, I thought, looked pretty good. He was efficient. I don't know how good he'll look against the better defenses that he's going to see coming up here, but I thought he showed promise. I am so on the fence about how seriously I should take the threat that they may pose to Georgia, that they may pose to Bama later on in the year.
I think all of those are reasonable points. Auburn is just at the point where, you remember the Seinfeld episode where there was somebody that you couldn't tell if they were attractive based on the light?
Yeah, the good light, bad light on the porch, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if Auburn is a good and bad light team. We're just like, oh, from this angle in the second quarter, they're putting together huge plays, and Jarrett Stidham throws a great deep ball. Oh, but from this angle, it's another slow start, and you probably can't have that against a team like Georgia. Oh, but from this angle, they have Kerryon Johnson running around the edge and just torching people. Oh, but, the defense giving up some bigger passes as well. So they're a team that I feel mostly good about, but I'm going to need to be sold this coming week against Georgia.
Big game. You mentioned Georgia. Georgia won 24-10. Over South Carolina. Carolina pushed Georgia, Dan.
Yeah, for a good chunk of this game.
Probably Georgia's toughest game since Notre Dame on the road in week 2. Jake Fromm had 2 touchdowns, but more importantly, he was just really accurate.
Completed passes, yep.
Really accurate as a thrower. Didn't make any dumb mistakes.
100%. And Jake Fromm looks to be an SEC championship caliber quarterback against, this was a decidedly decent but nothing terrific defense from South Carolina. But, Gamecocks moved the ball at times. I like the game. Hayden Hurst and Brian Edwards had some big catches. I just also wanted to mention, while you're just talking SEC stuff, Tennessee, Ty, won a college football game by double digits against an FBS team, Ty.
Elsewhere in the South, Miami 28, Virginia Tech 10, a huge home win for the Miami Hurricanes.
Oh, yeah.
They will no doubt boost up in the forthcoming college football playoff rankings. They outgained Virginia Tech 429-229. clearly a statement. If you watched this game, and I know you did, it just felt like Miami was better. You know, if you didn't see a scoreboard, if you didn't see any scoring plays, in a blind taste test, Miami was better in this football game.
Absolutely. Miami jumped out to the lead. Defensively, they were pressuring Josh Jackson a ton. They picked him off a couple times. Defense was swarming. Offensively, Travis Homer was really nice on the ground. They were taking chances. He had a couple double pass attempts back to Malik Rozier. And just, first of all, going into this game, Ty, did you notice that people were surprisingly abundant in saying, ooh, Dan and Ty picked Miami outright?
I did. They loved it.
As a Tech fan, love to see that. Like, ooh, okay. All right. Then it didn't work out. Miami was very good. I'm not fully buying them as a top 5 team right now. Not yet. But are they good enough to give a scare into Clemson or beat Clemson? Yeah. I think so.
They need to clear up some of those turnovers, though.
Yeah, that's the issue.
You know, Malik Rozier, 10 of 21. He threw 2 touchdowns, but 3 interceptions. And if you watched them all, they weren't the prettiest of interceptions. The counterpoint is that defensively, they forced 4 turnovers from Virginia Tech. As long as the defense continues to play at a very high level, that gives the offense a bit of a safety net. I am super curious to see what the point spread is going to be next week against Notre Dame.
So it's in Miami. The line, I think Notre Dame is probably favored by under 5 points.
That seems fair. Maybe 3.
Yeah, 2.5, 3, 3.5 in that range. Who knows? I mean, Josh Adams leaves the game. We haven't talked about Notre Dame Wake yet. So Josh Adams leaves that game early. Brandon Wimbush is amazing on the ground, but misses some makeable throws against a good Miami defense. Yeah, I think it should be relatively close. And this Miami team is going to be a tough out.
You know, we've flip-flopped on them too. We've talked about their luck running out at some point here as they get to the better teams in their schedule. But then
no luck yesterday.
No, they play a team like Virginia Tech, who I thought was pretty good, and Virginia Tech got shut down. They just got outright shut down in this game. Miami looked very, very solid. We will see how the playoff committee rewards that performance on Tuesday evening, but I suspect this game that we're going to have on Saturday night between Notre Dame and Miami will be a monster showdown among many others, but I'm excited to see that game. We mentioned Notre Dame. They won 48-37 over Wake Forest. You mentioned Brandon Wimbush. He is getting better. He is absolutely getting better. He will continue to get better, provided he doesn't get hurt. That is, I think, the operative phrase, because he's not the biggest guy in the world. He's very talented. It is clear that there are some injury concerns with him.
Yeah, he missed a game. Who was it against? North Carolina?
He missed the North Carolina game, yeah.
Yeah.
So if they can protect him and keep him healthy, I think he'll continue to improve. He does seem to be building a rapport with Chase Claypool in the passing game, who had a big game. He seems to be more confident when he's back there as a passer. Notre Dame had 710 in total yardage. Full control of this football game. Don't look at the scoreboard and say, oh, wow, it was close. They led 34-10 late into the third quarter. And then it was just sort of like, you know, Jesus take the wheel. We'll see what happens here.
Good use of Jesus takes the wheel, Ty.
The Wolford wagon got rolling there in the end, but ultimately a good win here for Notre Dame.
At all concerning that a dual threat quarterback? Or do you think it was all sort of garbage time and inconsequential ahead of Malik Rozier? Ahead of Navy?
I don't know what I think, Dan. Don't ask me that question.
Sorry, I apologize.
Elsewhere in the ACC, we had Clemson 38, NC State 31. This was a good game.
Oh, great game.
It felt like an even match to me. Clemson trailed for most of it. NC State, I thought, looked really good. Really good, but we've seen it time and time again. Clemson makes a few tweaks. They find a way to assert control later in the game. Got a huge touchdown run, an 89-yarder from Tavian Feaster at the end of the third quarter, which really started tipping the scales in favor of Clemson. Not to mention Kelly Bryant. I thought he played pretty well in crunch time. All that being said, and I know you tweeted about it, my favorite nugget from this game was Dave Duran questioning why Clemson had a laptop on the sidelines.
It was so strange. And it was from the social media team. Somebody from that was using the laptop. I understand playing in the ACC after last year in WikiLeaks. There's tensions are high, Ty.
Yeah.
But don't focus on that in your presser.
And I like how you tweeted out the gif of the annexation of Puerto Rico.
Yeah, the annexation of Doran Rico.
I was going to go to the same place with it if you didn't tweet that out.
Oh, good. Yeah, same page.
Any takeaways for you from this Clemson victory?
Yeah, it was a game Clemson could have easily lost and were losing for at least a chunk of this game. They were down at halftime, right?
Yeah.
They were down by 4. I was impressed with how Kelly Bryant, even over the course of the game, improved. He had that bad pick early on because he was just sort of throwing it while on the run without squaring up. And then he had a very similar throw on a key third down moment in the second half, squared up his shoulders, was super accurate. So I like to see that in-game improvement. Tavion Feaster had his long touchdown run, but was relatively quiet otherwise. And granted, it was a great run. NC State-wise, Ryan Finley looks like a ninth-year senior.
Yeah.
He's not great. He's not bad. He's just accurate and has the instincts to run an offense efficiently, and that's what he did. Didn't have a ton of success downfield. It was, it's brutal to see, a drive killed basically on that what was an illegal shift on third down.
Yeah,
So it set up a long fourth down late. Yeah. So rough way to go down, but good fight. Really good fight from NC State. It doesn't make it any easier if you're a Wolfpack fan, but really fun back and forth.
Quickly, Florida State wins by 3 over Syracuse. Syracuse had a run at a 43-yarder, but missed it. Florida State gets their first home win in week 10 of the college football season.
Yeah, early November.
And Virginia wins by 4 over Georgia Tech. Nice game from Kurt Bankert, and Virginia's now bowl eligible.
Hell yes, they are, Ty. Hell yes.
Let's jump over temporarily to the Pac-12 and talk about Washington State 24, Stanford 21.
Mm-hmm.
You accurately predicted the weather in this game.
If you can't predict the score, Ty, get the precipitation.
We both had Washington State, though, to our credit.
We did.
Bryce Love was still dealing with an ankle injury. He did have an early 52-yard touchdown run, but beyond that was held to, 17 yards on his next 15 carries?
Yeah, that's not great. KJ Costello started this game, and we had seen Keller Chris struggle to give any sort of energy to this offense. KJ Costello didn't do much for this offense either. Starting to think it's not a quarterback issue. And Stanford only had, 14 offensive points because they had a pick 6 in this game. So another struggle in inclement weather, but still, Stanford, come on, what are you doing? You have a great offensive line. You have talented tight ends. I don't think Stanford has team speed, which you should have outside of Bryce Love. But yeah, Wazoo did a good job staying in. Luke Falk bounced back nicely, made some big throws. They ran well. They didn't run a ton, but good for Wazoo sticking it out, and they have won 8 games, which is not still we can't accept this as normal that Wazoo is year in and year out good. We have to celebrate it as, this is cool. Wazoo is now 8-2. Great.
Luke Falk looked good. It's been a bit of a bumpy ride for him this season, but I thought he looked pretty good in this game, all things considered. And a big home win, 24-21 over Stanford. That's setting up what could be a monster Apple Cup with the Washington Huskies. Washington won 38-3 over your Oregon Ducks. Dante Pettis breaks an NCAA record for punt returns for touchdown. He has 9 in his career. His return in the second quarter sort of broke this game open.
Once this Oregon team goes down by 14 with a backup quarterback in, that's that. At 17-3, I was like, all right, it was right before halftime. I'm like, you know what? Nope. I'm going to sleep. And I enjoyed my sleep, Ty. I had a wonderful night of sleep. So Washington's in a very nice place. Weirdly enough, though, Ty, and I saw this, I believe, on Rule of Tree, the great Stanford community on SB Nation. If Stanford, and this is just an enormous size if Stanford beats Washington this coming Friday, this is granted 3 lost Stanford at this point, but one of which was to San Diego State. If they beat Washington in Palo Alto on Friday, and Washington in turn beats Washington State in the Apple Cup, Stanford wins the North.
Wow.
So strange, because Stanford would then have the 2-loss tiebreaker over Washington, who lost to Arizona State, and Washington State would then have 3 losses in conference after losing to Washington. So if you really want to knock the Pac-12 out of any sort of interesting postseason discussion, you're a Stanford fan now.
Is anyone going to talk about Washington this year for the playoff? Because I feel a bit like,
I would love to.
The friend that you forgot to include in your dinner reservations.
What would you like to know?
Can they make it? Are they good enough to be there?
Yes, they are, because the Big 12 could very well eat itself. The Big 10 East is now in the process of eating itself. ACC is in pretty good shape. Who knows what will happen in that championship game? Looks like we have Clemson, Miami. The SEC is in a good position. Notre Dame is in a good position with how little Stanford can score, and Miami is beatable, but still very good. So Washington-wise, they will beat what looks like a ranked Washington State team, right?
Yeah.
They will beat an improving USC team if they win out in the championship game now that USC has done away with Arizona. And Washington's defense will get healthier because they're down a couple corners. Offensively, they're down their left tackle, which hurts them a little bit, but they shifted things around last night. They've got two very good running backs. Jake Browning, when healthy, has slightly more than a pop gun arm, but is accurate and very smart. Washington's well coached, and that defense, Ty, is probably one of the best 4 defenses in the country.
They're very
maybe
good.
Even higher against the ground. They're so good defensively.
They're very good. Don't sleep on Washington, because look at how crazy things got in week 10. There's a lot of big action still to be played.
Yes, sir.
All right. You mentioned USC. They won 49-35. They led Arizona 28-6 midway through the third quarter. And then it was tater time, Dan. Tater time. He was able to erase some of the lead. Made a few big plays with his legs through the air. Just not enough of them. They ran out of time. He finished with over 300 yards in total, 300 more touchdowns to his name. But ultimately, I think USC was just dominant on the ground. It's Ronald Jones. They decided they wanted to use him to make him a dominant player. And they outgained Zona 642-380.
Yeah, Arizona up front is a team that if you're going to spread them out, if you're going to try misdirection stuff, there's enough speed up front from Arizona in a lesser way than Washington State, but a similar sensibility that they can do that. USC has big dudes up front. And they want to run right at you. And that's what they wisely did. Defensively, they had some issues tackling in the open field in the second half. The offense stalled out a little bit too much, but I thought their first half was pretty much perfect. Just going straight at Arizona. It was 21-6, and they score pretty quickly into the second half, or at least halfway through the third quarter. They look like they're in the driver's seat, but sometimes against an excellent talent, you just got to weather the storm, and USC did it.
All right. Arizona State 41, Colorado 30. ASU ran for 381.
Huge comeback
in this game. Big comeback. On Friday, we had Utah 48, UCLA 17. Remember how Tyler Huntley came back a few weeks ago and threw a bunch of picks?
Mm-hmm.
Then he looked better the next game. And then he played UCLA.
Plop, plop, fizz, fizz. Oh, what a relief it is.
Dan, that defense is a magic elixir if you're having difficulty. If you're trying to get back in the swing of things. Whatever ails you on offense, UCLA is there. UCLA should play Florida.
Don't say that, Ty.
It might help.
We might get in trouble by the FCC. I don't know how. For you saying that. Tyler Huntley wasn't even good last week against Oregon. A tough Oregon defense on the road. But yeah, UCLA is that cure. They are just the cure.
Utah wins 48-17 on Friday.
No Josh Rosen, mind you. But
no Josh Rosen. He was out. And finally, to round out the Pac-12, we have Cal 37, Oregon State 23.
Could get bowl eligible. They have Stanford and UCLA. Those are 2 winnable games for a decidedly average Cal team, or below average Cal team, but still winnable. It's not tough to play at Stanford, not tough to play at UCLA. They could win one of those and get to a bowl. Great.
Speaking of Pac-12 and Pac-12 After Dark, Dan, I'd like to mention here that Casper is a sleep brand that continues to revolutionize its line of products to create an exceptionally comfortable sleep experience one night at a time. They've got 3 mattress models now. The original Casper, the Wave, and the Essential. Casper mattresses are perfectly designed to soothe and cradle your natural geometry. Not to mention the breathable design. It helps you sleep cool. It regulates your body temperature all throughout the night. It is delivered right to your door in a small, how did they do that sized box?
How did they do that?
With free shipping and returns in the United States and Canada. The best part, though, is that you can be sure of your purchase with their 100-night risk-free Sleep On It trial.
I like the excitement.
You spend 1/3 of your life sleeping. You should at least be comfortable, Dan. We both have them. We both use them. We both love them. The unboxing experience we've talked about at great length here on the show. I'm sure it's bothered people, the extent to which we've discussed it, but it's just all around a cool experience to get Casper showing up at your door.
The best.
Start sleeping ahead of the curve with Casper. Get $50 towards any mattress purchase by visiting casper.com/verbal. And then when they ask you, use verbal, VERBAL at checkout, casper.com/verbal. Your offer code is verbal. You'll save $50 on your mattress purchase. Terms and conditions do apply. Let's go back to the SEC, if you don't mind.
I don't mind.
I'm going to run through a couple scores very quickly, and then I want to talk about the key points. Maybe not from each, but just as a whole here. 6 games. We already mentioned Tennessee and Southern Miss. Tennessee won 24-10. Don't need to talk much more about that. We had Mississippi State coming from behind a bit to knock off UMass by a 34-23 margin. We had Ole Miss beating Kentucky 37-34.
Last second, yeah.
Vandy 31, Western Kentucky 17. We'll mention Arkansas here, 39-38 over Coastal Carolina. You mentioned them earlier. And then finally, Missouri 45. I was trying to build up some suspense here for this one. Missouri 45, Florida 16, Dan.
Yep.
What are your thoughts here about these games?
Florida's ready for vacation.
Yep.
Florida is counting the hours. There's not much to say about the Florida game, but you know what? Good for Mizzou, looking like they had given up on the season in early September, for slowly building and trying to salvage something. Drew Lock had another nice game.
Florida was like they left early to beat the traffic in this game.
Absolutely.
Also, Dan Mullen shining up his resume. Nice here for this Florida job by needing that comeback to beat UMass.
Yeah, that's what you want to see from a coach you're considering for a top 10 job, top 5 job. Struggling with UMass at home. Also, Ty, Vandy, you talk about, we mentioned Virginia, the quest for 6 in Nashville.
Oh, yeah.
They're 4-5 right now, and they finished with Mizzou and Tennessee. It is a very real quest, Ty. It is very real.
Go over to the Big Ten. 4 games that we didn't mention. Michigan 33, Minnesota 10. We didn't get an extended look at Brandon Peters because Michigan ran for 371
I was going to say, they literally ran away with this game, yes.
But with Maryland, Wisconsin, and Ohio State to close out the year, we will see much more of him before long. Maybe he can tune it up next week against the Terrapins. Michigan's got an opportunity here to be a true agent of chaos. Between the Wisconsin game, the Ohio State game, they can seriously leave a big dent in the Big Ten East, the Big Ten as a whole here, and play some games that are going to have enormous national implications.
Yep. And 2 of their next 3 games, right, are on the road. They don't come back to Ann Arbor until Thanksgiving weekend in the Ohio State game. So Brandon Peters is going to have to grow up quickly there, Ty.
Northwestern 31, Nebraska 24 in overtime. It dawned on me while doing the research this morning, Northwestern is attempting what I would call the quietest 9-3 season in the history of college football.
And number 2, 3, and 4 are also Northwestern. Yeah, Northwestern goes to overtime and scares the hell out of their own fans. So it was 1 overtime against Nebraska. Yes.
Yeah.
It was 3 against Michigan State.
3. Yep.
And 1 against Iowa.
Yep.
This is just Northwestern just laying low. Northwestern is like you read an obituary, it's like, yeah, the librarian stashed away $12 million. Like, what? That's what Northwestern's doing with wins. Like, Northwestern finished with 9 wins?
The cardiac cats, baby.
Did they inherit 3.5? Okay.
31-24. And then also to round out the Big Ten, we had Purdue and Rutgers both getting W's.
And Rutgers now 3 Big Ten wins?
Yep.
Chris Ash, again, it's not really quietly because, we didn't figure Rutgers was going to do much, but in his second year, winning 3, and they have Indiana left. I would say at this point that's competitive-ish.
It's improvement.
They have Michigan State and Penn State, but yeah.
All right, let's go over the Big 12 again. Kansas State 42, Texas Tech 35. A wild back and forth game here. K-State got a look at Skylar Thompson. He's a redshirt freshman. He came on in relief of Alex Delton, who took a big helmet-to-helmet hit and had to leave. But nice win here for K-State. I can't help but wonder what the future holds for Cliff Kingsbury now after this one.
So who does Texas Tech finish with? It looks like they have Baylor, TCU, and Texas. So if they win 2 of 3, which is a lot, I mean, they can beat Baylor, and Texas is winnable given what that offense attempts to do. It doesn't necessarily succeed in doing. If they finish 6-6, is he just done? If they go to a bowl game?
Just the problem is it doesn't feel like it's ever getting any better.
They've lost 5 of 6 right now.
It just feels like they're constantly treading water in Lubbock.
Yeah, to start 4-1, and then now they're 0-4 in their last 4. Yeah, at a certain point, what are you supposed to expect? I think at Texas Tech, it's not unreasonable to expect between 6 and 8 wins in a given year. And if he gets to 6, it's something, but I don't know if it's enough. I really don't.
Elsewhere in the Big 12, we had Baylor getting their first win, 38-9 over Kansas. Congratulations. We had a call from a Baylor fan who was very conflicted on whether we should talk about Baylor winning a game. But hey, I've said it before. Tough situation. They're playing hard.
Yeah, nice game.
It was never going to be a banner year, but a win's a win.
And I think we like Matt Rule and hope he personally succeeds. Yeah.
The only other note that I have here, did you see what happened in the Florida Atlantic Marshall game?
Lane Kiffin tweeting about the spread.
Ultimate backdoor cover. Here's what went down. Florida Atlantic and Lane Kiffin.
Friday night?
Friday night.
Yes.
They're up 30-23, 14 seconds left. But it's 4th down. The clock is stopped. They're deep in their own territory. Lane sends his punter out there. He tells him run around for a little bit, then run out of the back of the end zone. Take a safety. Which is smart, I thought. They didn't have to risk a punt return. That made the final score 30-25. The point spread was Florida Atlantic -6. And then he tweeted about it just to sort of rub it in, which rubbed a lot of people the wrong way that he'd be tweeting about the point spread. But the correct strategic move, though, for Lane Kiffin. And he's actually done a pretty good job down there at Florida Atlantic.
Yeah, they're undefeated in conference. And I believe, and maybe this will change, I haven't seen the new rankings, but I think Wisconsin's most impressive S&P Plus win, the Bill Connolly data set, is FAU.
That would make sense, right?
It makes total sense because offensively, they've looked like a juggernaut at times. Here's my question now to you that I will posit, Ty.
Please.
You know the stories you see sometimes, like how I turned a red pen into a yacht.
Yeah.
You just like keep bartering up. How far can Lane Kiffin barter up?
Well, we've had the prop bet on this show for years now. How many head coaching positions will he have before his career is through?
So my question isn't a number-based question. My question is, okay, we have UCF and perhaps USF with jobs that are being filled by guys who have, I think it's fair to say, higher aspirations, right?
Yeah.
So that would be a sensical first step. And then what level job do you think Lane Kiffin can barter this red pen? And I'm not calling FAU the red pen. I'm just calling the situation he currently finds himself in relative to where he was. How far up can he barter?
I mean, I wouldn't want to say that he won't be president of the United States at some point.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, how can you ever say that?
At this point, I think it's entirely on the table.
Can he get a Power 5 job at a place that we consider to be a perennial bowl destination?
Somebody's going to do it.
Yeah.
Here's a quick look at what's coming up in week 11.
Okay.
We got a big Friday night game between Washington and Stanford. Late game on FS1. We've got Michigan State on the road at Ohio State at noon. We've got Oklahoma State at Iowa State at noon, which is an interesting game. We've got Georgia on the road at Auburn at 3:30. Big one there. We've got Iowa at Wisconsin, which could be interesting. We've got Alabama at Mississippi State. I don't know how interesting that'll be, but Mississippi State's ranked. We've got TCU at Oklahoma at 8 p.m.
Ooh, spicy.
And also at 8 p.m., we've got Notre Dame at Miami.
Yeah.
Not many windows of opportunity in there, Dan.
No, not too many windows of opportunity in there. Let's see, the most important question, Ty. I'm looking at the Friday night slate as a whole. I have not talked to our pal Adam Amin, who was eating sandwiches.
Yeah, I saw that.
Box.
Yeah, right.
If I had to guess, looking at the Friday night schedule, the ESPN games are BYU at UNLV, tons of eating opportunities in Vegas, obviously, and Cincinnati hosting Temple. So those are the ESPN games Friday night. I don't know which game he has, but he can eat some gross chili in Cincinnati and any number of things in Vegas. So there's that.
There you have it. Okay. Fun week of college football.
Yeah. There was some other stuff, Ty, that happened.
Please.
Just because we celebrate everything. Northern Illinois goes down to Toledo. An impressive win. Toledo remains undefeated in the MAC and sneaky in that group of 5 New Year's 6 conversation, I would say, right now. I mean, UCF is in the driver's seat. Temple had a really nice win as they're slowly improving over Navy. Troy with a win, which is important because App State lost in the Sun Belt. I don't think we're in a group of 5 situation there, but that's at least something. Georgia Southern still loses. They go to 0-8. Georgia State is now at 5-3. UAB, bowl eligible, Tyler.
Yeah.
Bill Clark and the job he's done for the Blazers, super impressive against Rice, New Mexico State. Shout out to Bill Connolly. They win by 10. USF bounces back with a nice win over UConn. North Texas, the Mean Green, bowl eligible, Ty. They were so bad. And now they are pretty good.
Not bad, right?
They are totally fine. They sneak by Louisiana Tech. Army with a ridiculous game from their quarterback. They shut out Air Force on the road. Ty, that's a good thing. That's a really good thing from where this Army team was. Utah State might get bowl eligible. They take down New Mexico, who has taken a huge leap back. A lot of off-field worries and awfulness, perhaps, for New Mexico. Wyoming improving. They beat Colorado State, which is a tough out in the Mountain West. And that was, did you see the snow in that game, Ty?
Oh, man. It was coming down.
I love that.
Yeah, it was coming.
Nothing better than being in a place where it's not snowy and looking at a football game on television where there is snow. Outside of that, Fresno is very secretly decent under the radar. They had a couple of really impossible games in the non-con, but they beat BYU as everybody should do. And that's all I have, other than I do have a request for a sound, Ty.
Oh, please.
We have some dudes.
All right, hit me with them.
I'm going to start right off the top. Punters are people, and J.K. Scott is a dude.
Yeah.
Alabama's punter. Nick Orford, TCU, their safety, had a ridiculous game. Joe Jackson, the end for Miami was super duper disruptive. Josh Jackson sounds like the same human, very similar human, because he was disruptive for Iowa all over the place, just knocking down and catching passes. Kaleke Hudson for Michigan, just filling up the stat sheet. Spencer Brown was running all over the place for UAB. Dante Pettis set a damn record for punt return touchdowns against who? I don't recall. Frank, how do you pronounce Temple's quarterback's name? Because he was ridiculous. Frank Newtile? I just saw highlights. I apologize. I was not watching Temple. Ronald Jones, the Texas Tesla, ran all over Arizona. Cam Akers had a nice day for Florida State. David Blau, Purdue wins. Yes.
29-10.
Yeah, absolutely. Marquise Brown for Oklahoma had, 7 miles of receiving. Chase Claypool, we mentioned, had a huge game for Notre Dame and nice connection with Brandon Wimbush. And Ahmad Bradshaw, we just mentioned Army's win. He ran all over the Falcons of Air Force. So those are your dudes.
Very cool. Well, thank you to everyone out there for tuning in. Don't forget you can find us out at solidverbal.com. We do 2 shows a week. 1 review show, like the one you're hearing now, and 1 preview show, like you hear every Wednesday evening when we preview all the action that is to come. Our next show will be on Wednesday. We will be talking about a monster slate of games in Week 11. I'm very excited to do that. In the meantime, you can always find us out on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram. We are all over the place. You can also send us text messages at 408-VERBAL-1 and give us a call on the weekends when games are going on at the same number. We call it the Reverb line. You heard it a little earlier. Big thanks to our boy Taylor, who so diligently cuts those up every Sunday morning.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, Dan. Fun show.
Oh, great show.
For that gentleman over there, Dan Rubenstein, for myself, Ty Hillenbrandt, here in good old Eastern PA, we will catch you all in a few days. In the meantime, it's solid.
Peace.